Intent. Okay, I apologize. I thought I had answered that. Perhaps it's because I don't want to be prejudicial. I mean, I don't know what is in the hearts and minds of the WEF and all of its 1,400 members. I do know some of the history behind the participants and the characters. We also have, but we're living in a world where we're not even sure we live in democracies anymore. So we don't know who wins an election. And why don't we know that? Is because of digital manipulation. Okay? Who is doing that? There's no proof of intent or motive. But we have to understand, I can explain motivation, but first, let's look at the history of corporations in the world. First, they started in the Roman Empire, and say the UK, the Imperial United Kingdom, back in 1600, I believe it was Queen Elizabeth I. She chartered the first corporation. It was an LLC or limited. I'm not sure. The U.S. and U.K. is different corporate law, I believe, or terminology. Limited. I mean, corporations are limited. If you're too big, banks, if you're Wall Street, if you're too big to fail, you're limited. They don't have the same response. They're entities that don't have the same responsibilities as us individual citizens. They get away with murder. And then, so Queen Elizabeth chartered the first corporation that she chartered. It defined I know this from geopolitics and a little bit of history. It was a corporation that went to around the world. It had its own military. It raised children for their military. Okay. Good stock for their own military. And they invaded nations. They plundered. They manipulated populations. They were even the world's largest drug trafficking ring during that period. And I'm talking about the British East Indian Company. I know from geopolitics that they defined geopolitics. They created at least two nations. The United States was one of them, and India. And created wars backed by the Queen, the Crown, backed by them. They worked for her. Okay? If I'm not sure if it was the City of London or if even the City of London existed back then, but she was probably the stockholder, and the stockholders were not nice, and there was no such thing as CEO back then. But it's hard to trust CEOs. So I can explain motivation, okay? Because before placing judgment, I like to put myself in other people's shoes, okay? So I'm a billionaire. I'm a millionaire. That depends. CEOs are millionaires. Politicians are millionaires. Some are millionaires. The honest ones aren't. But I depend on corporations because if I'm a CEO, I may not be a billionaire, but I receive a parachute payment every time I produce. If the stockholders are happy with me, board of directors, et cetera, et cetera. If I sell a product like they're trying to sell us, the Great Reset. It's a product. So they these corporations have the history has been, and it hasn't changed much since the 1600s. It hasn't changed much since Rome. It's all centralized. Rome would invade, and then taxes were sent to the Romans. They would invade thousands of miles away from Rome, but the taxes always went to Rome. And they had slogans too, like okay, we conquest, and you will have peace and prosperity. So people were actually they were proud of being invaded. Some surrendered, some regions surrendered because they wanted to be Romans. So corporations get away with murder, and they're corporate. But let's just say, okay, I am a billionaire or a millionaire, that depends on corporations, or my foundation that protects these corporations, because you see what's going on with all the CEOs that are actually resigning, starting foundations, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be a little desperate right now because the whole world is coming apart. Probably, and it's already happening, in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, there is going to be a whole lot of desperate, miserable people. Okay? So they're out of work, which is happening. Small business closures. Entrepreneurs can't make money if they're closed. Okay, they might not be poor, but the poor people, I believe there will soon be social chaos, violent crime. In some countries, sporadic rebellions, wars of the unplanned one, because most wars are planned, of the unplanned ones. My cash, I know it's going to dissipate. It's just like going to turn into ether if hyperinflation kicks in or there is a collapse. Gold certificates, if it's paper, gold is perhaps will save a fortune like that if you have it all hidden under your bed. But then, you can be invaded, and paper means nothing today. Crypto means a little more, but do we trust the Diem and trust the Libra? Are they not, if it's true that Bitcoin is an honest, decentralized crypto, is government, are these other corporations not going to sabotage it? So, look, if I were them right now, assets, stocks, okay? I wouldn't be worried I'd be more worried about my ass than assets right now, because I could be lynched if there's an economic collapse. How am I going to live a tranquil life? Where can you hide? Where can you go? So, motivation, that would be the motivation. They're afraid. They will be afraid of their own shadows if a greater depression were to happen. And they will lose what they're doing to protect themselves. I have no idea, but I don't see. That's why they're trying to restructure it themselves. the only way. By them controlling the restructuring of the economy, then corporations will survive. And I'm not against that, but it has to be a fair system for all and equitable, because there are a lot in that 99%. Not everybody is poor, but the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer, and I don't see it getting better. I'm pretty good about trends, and I don't see that trend. So I would be scared right now, and I would push Great Reset. But imagine 1,400 members, and the world population is 17.8. Last census was, let's just say 17.8. Against 1,400 members, it doesn't make any common sense at all that this one group is in charge of restructuring 7.8 billion people's future. How can they decide? So, motivation.